Good evening, Peter.
Good morning, Ron. Nice and early in the morning for you, and going on 8 o'clock in the evening for me. So yeah, it's good we're not that far apart.
Okay, and what was it that you wanted to talk about today?
Well, a website that a friend of mine is developing, which is mainly concerned with creating CVACs. And for most of your viewers would probably be quite aware what the acronym stands for, Creators Value Asset Center. We've renamed it for the purpose of this website as Community Value Asset Center. And basically, what we're looking at the moment is based on the assertion that we are now spiritually awake and aware enough to become self-responsible and design our own government. And the way that governance is probably a better term, and the way that we would like to govern ourselves and the relationship between each other and our communities. And it's something that needs to be very much addressed because Rena Eliades, who's the lady who did Pirates of the Suburbs and Pirates of the Suburbs 2, which are excellent videos, she became disillusioned last year with everything that was happening on Facebook, and people referring or pointing to the negatives constantly, and sharing fluffy pictures with quotes by Rumi, and she wanted to get involved in something that was a bit more hands-on and solutions oriented, and she started this direct democracy website, which is now repurposed and revamped to become a CVAC design website. And we're inviting the public who are aware of what a CVAC concept is, and we can get into that a little bit more in a moment, to join up. Looks exactly like Facebook, or at least the previous version of Facebook. So it's very, very easy for people to get familiar with it and use it. And there are loads of discussion groups and all sorts of things going on there. And so we're trying to get a community together, and the site will hold up to a million users. So plenty of space there and plenty of capacity there. For people who are looking at solutions and how to implement solutions, and looking at all facets of life and all the areas that touch our lives. And the idea of a CVAC, of course, is based on Heather Tucci's UCC filings. And I think at the moment, the whole concept of CVAC is, for me, the most pertinent one out of the lot. Okay, the corporations have been foreclosed, which is what the first thing she did. The courtesy notices are being sent out and have been sent out, and corporations have been informed and banks have been informed that their loans are illegal, unlawful. And the next step really was the setup of CVACs. And the next step after that would be, as I see it, what Heather designed as the IUV in change, where we, moving away more from a money perspective, but going to another representation of the value of our energy. And then, of course, the latest thing she's working on is the repurposing of the banks. And it's very interesting to see a few people like Kiri and Bob Wright stand up very bravely and go and tackle these banks. But for myself, I'm not quite resonating with that, because I don't think the time is right for that as yet. Heather hasn't released the paperwork to the public, and
yes,
I think that's
unfortunately.
Well, I think that's for a good reason. I do believe that entering into contracts of value with criminally foreclosed entities to get hollowed out worthless fiat money is really, at this particular point in time, not the way to go. The repurposing of the banks has to come after the banks have gone belly up, basically, after the system has been closed down, and really closed down, not just on paper, but once it's actually finally gone down, and it is going to go down. They're going to crash the system. All signs are pointing at that.
Yeah, because
And
there's an
as
awful lot of rumors out on the web that I'm seeing about a system reset, and it's supposed to be coming. Some people say this month, and others say September, but it's fairly imminent from all of the indicators that I've been looking at.
Oh, it is imminent, and there's no option there. And they can't keep inflating this derivatives bubble. That's it's getting into such large figures now. It's just absolutely obscene. And after a certain amount of zeros, I just stop counting and I just go obscene. And that's where it's getting to. They're driving it to a point where the system's going to go down, and they're going to say, well, we have to reset everything, and we're going to make a fairer system. And I think at that point, what Heather is doing now, those papers will be released, because then we have a choice of going another way, that rather than their offer of a reset. And I think that's really the timing for that. And it was interesting to see in Heather's latest interview with Mel V. I don't know if you've seen it,
Was that
but
about 10 days ago or so?
yeah, something like that. And she was saying, I don't do things in time, I do things
Right.
in order. And that to me was the biggest clue, because that really, I was really puzzled about, and I've got nothing against Kiri or Bob Wright or what they're doing. I think they're so tremendously brave to stand up the way they did, and for Kiri to have been to court, and kudos on everybody that supported her. And I certainly, spiritually
I'm
and
one of
mentally
them.
and emotionally, yeah, me too. But I just see that as premature. I just see that Heather's laid out a series of steps, and that the timing for that isn't quite right. I just can't see the sense of contracting with a foreclosed criminal entity to get fiat money, and then to tell them in the contract, well, once I give you my share of that value for as a fee for interacting, I expect you not to fractional lend it, or I expect you not to put it into derivatives markets or bonds. That's tying the cat to the bacon. I mean, these guys are criminals, and they break their own rules amongst each other, let alone what sort of a contract you're going to put up with them. And so I can't see the sense in that, but I can see the sense in starting this whole concept, and you see it popping up everywhere now. The idea of self-government is becoming more than an idea. It's becoming something that people are tangibly working towards, and it's one of those things that you could call it the precipitation of a communal global thought form as such. And we call it CVACs because that's an acronym that we're familiar with, and there are a lot of other groups who are calling it other things, basically.
Did
And
you
I
see where
think,
the guy from Russia altered the credit card fine print, and that they weren't allowed to charge him interest, and they had an unlimited account, and they went ahead and issued the card, and then they realized what they had done, and they tried to take him to court, and in the Russian court sided with him. Did you see that thing or
yeah,
not?
well, they signed a contract. It was their black and white, and it was his black and white, and that was pretty clever. And how silly that they didn't pick that up. Unlimited credit, no interest. It's a good deal. Still just hollow fiat money though. But yeah, what I find quite interesting at the moment is going back to the name of the country escapes me. It's where they confiscated the money out of the bank accounts. Cyprus.
Yeah.
Cyprus has been in the news saying that the government is now coming up with a plan to guarantee everybody a minimum income and a minimum standard of living, regardless of their employment or social status. And I find that quite interesting for a country that's so bankrupt that it had to raid its own people's bank accounts to pay off foreign debt to a criminal cabal that can all of a sudden all of a sudden they can find the resources to start implementing, throwing buckets of money at everyone and guaranteeing income and guaranteeing housing. And I think this is very early signs of what the old criminal boys are up to in terms of trying to throw us a bit of a boon and a few crumbs when it all goes south and when it all goes sour. And coming out with a top down sort of this is how it is, this is how we're going to help you, and you're going to have all this, and we're going to be fair to you, and we're going to reset things. And that's all very top-down sort of stuff, given to you by governments and powers that were, and it's just dressing up the old doll in new Dolly's clothes, and then pretending it's a new toy altogether. And you're going to see that, I think, and so they are preparing. They're
real
definitely
democracy, or more correctly, real republics always work from the bottom up, not the top
Yep.
down. And if only people could get that through our heads, that the power comes from us and always has.
Yeah.
But most people are unaware of that because we've been so brainwashed in the system to think that we are powerless and they, our leaders, hold all the power and the authority. And it's really the opposite.
Yeah, and also a lot of that again boils down to the indoctrination of religious, institutionalized religious spirituality that tells you that you're a worthless sinner and you got to look up to the authority figure to rescue you, and that's so ingrained in everyone. And we really do have to get back to understanding, like we've talked about before, about what our value really is. And then once we understand that, we have to begin to imagineer a new reality. And that's what we want to do with direct democracy, is not saying, well, we're going to design how it's all going to look, but we're going to come up with proposals from people and projects, real projects by real people. People who are driven by passion and not power and position, people who are driven by the ideas that flow from their souls, that are looking for a meaningful way to express their passion and work together with like-minded people. So in other words, we want to put concrete proposals forward so that when a change starts to arise, that real action can be taken on the ground by people. And
the big thing, of course, Peter, is the funding. I have a friend that I posted her. She sent me her new webpage that was redesigned and did a beautiful job. She's been trying for several years now to start an intentional community in Costa Rica with organic farming and a whole bunch of other things as a retreat center. Anyway, the thing that's always stood in her way is funding. She's actually bought the land and she's ready to go, but to get the funding behind her has always been the issue, and that will be the issue even with CVACs, to find a way we can actually agree upon some kind of an exchange that works in our current system with our current state of consciousness.
Well, there's various ways we can go about that, and the community value is an amazing thing. If you look at crowdfunding projects that have been going on, there've been musicians who've done crowdfunding projects, and there's movie makers who've done crowdfunding projects. So let's say we design a really good project that lots of people resonate with, and we start passing the hat around, and we pull a project off somewhere, and it gathers momentum and it gets news, and it just takes that one little crack in the dam wall to start for the water to start seeping through. And it's all really well to if I look at Facebook and how many people are pointing the finger at the cabal and how much energy goes into that. And what we're trying to do is pour this energy into the creation of this thought form, or the co-creation of this global thought form that's taking place, of being born of a new way of governing ourselves and a new way of living in harmony with the earth. And so yeah, if we can funnel all this energy and get some crowdfunding, or when the financial system goes down and Heather's new way of contracting and repurposing then the banks starts to come through, that we can create community funding. Also at a local council level, I don't know what the situation in the States is, but the situation in Australia is such that local council isn't actually government. And there was going to be a referendum at this upcoming election, which is next month or something like that. Who cares? And they were asking people to have the local councils recognised as government and to give them legislative powers, which fortunately seems so unpopular that they've just decided to call off the referendum, which is great because we're not going to swallow that. We're not going to give our local council people the power to make laws, and that then gives the government the power to make laws without putting stuff through Parliament. And but local councils with us are not recognised government. They're a community service type setup. So when people get together, they can actually sack their council. And there's your opportunity to start saying, well, we need the council to empty our rubbish bins and, maintain a few bits and pieces around the place. And we can do that cheaper, and we can set up our own CVAC structure in our local council as a small community. And once we make that work and our council rates, the rates that we pay start to halve or quarter or less than that, we project, we can actually do this from the ground up and start our own smallest version of local government as a CVAC concept. And I don't know how that would apply to the States, but certainly crowdfunding, project funding, peer-to-peer funding, all that sort of stuff, it can certainly happen. Maybe the repurposing of the banks, people will be able to throw some value into it, but it's certainly going to be up to us. We really have to start rolling up the sleeves, stop pointing at the old boys and saying, well, they're the bad guys. Roll up the sleeves and begin to work with your passion, begin to work with your vision. Join groups, it doesn't have to be direct democracy, but we're coming up to a community of 400 or 500 now, and we're growing steadily. And just working in that sort of a sense, just being part of this unfolding energy and being part of building this dream, this thought form to become a reality. Because all our reality is made of thought forms. Money is a thought form. It's a piece of paper, and I exchange it with you for goods or services. That's because we both believe in it, because it's a manifested thought form that everybody's subscribed to. Our current form of government is a manifested thought form that everybody subscribes to. And if you look at the foundation of the United States, there were a group of visionaries who, your founding fathers, who laid down a document and started building a broad statement document.
They weren't perfect, but they had pretty good ideals.
Yeah, they were visionaries. And sure, the whole thing got co-opted and hijacked in the end. But if you see what their dreams and their visions were worth, what they've accomplished, I think that they dreamed up a new form of governance, and it wasn't ideal, obviously, and it's up to us now to take those legacies and to dare to dream. To they stood up to the British and said, well, we're worth something. We've got something here. We're really worth something, and we're going to state our rights and our freedoms and our vision of a new and better society where we don't need Mr. King and all his lords and ladies. And I think the time has come for us to have another kind of revolution now, and that's just a revolution of the heart. And that's a revolution of your dreaming, your vision. We're spiritually mature enough. We're emotionally mature enough. We're certainly intellectually well developed now. And it's not so hard to break the shackles, and more people are breaking the shackles, but there seems to be a sort of halting point when you break the shackles, and you're sort of a little bit dizzy and disoriented after you've just woken up. And so you kind of just start pointing the finger at the bad guys, and that's really a mode we need to get out of, because those are the last vestiges of the victim mentality that we need to shake off. And as soon as we start working on something positive, then we actually start to shake off the victim mentality, and then we really get into our power. But we don't get into our power if we're just standing there pointing at the bad guys. All you can do then is say, well, you're the bad guys, we don't want you anymore, now what? And then somebody else comes along and says, hey, I've got a solution for you. And that's what they're counting on. because I'm sure they already have that somebody else who comes and says, "Hey, I've got the solution for you," right lined up. And this is a time where we have a choice to become self-responsible and self-governing, and it can be done.
That will be indeed powerful when people have a viable alternative to what we've
Yep.
known, and a choice. Do you want this or do you want that? And it's viable and tangible, and people can look at it and say, "Wow, that will really be an awakening when we get to that point." I mean, I think pointing fingers at the problem is part of the evolution of consciousness, but we can't stay there. I agree with you completely that we can't stay only seeing what's wrong. Creating what's
Yeah.
right is very important, and the next step, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been through that stage too. What I was talking about on Facebook. I've exchanged plenty of pictures with lofty quotes and pointed at the cabal and Monsanto and all these sort of things. And I still like to point at Monsanto because they're particularly they're killing the bees. And when you get to the bees, I get angry. But yeah, you have to get further. You do have to look at the solutions. And if we don't dare to dream now, then we're not standing up. And then it's just going to be another top-down solution. And they'll give us a bit of a reset, and they'll throw us a few crumbs. And then, 6 months later, when everybody's kind of just settled down and thinking, oh, it's not too bad, they're just going to pull the rug out from under it anyway. They're just going to give away, because you know how any government is. They put $10 in your right pocket. There's the other hand taking 20 out of your left. So, and they're not going to change colours. They can't change who they are just by virtue of what they are, what they've become. And it is up to us to start aligning ourselves with people who are working out the solutions. And the beautiful thing is that in finding your own freedom, you find your own passion. And the beautiful thing is that to get involved with groups such as the one we're setting up, it allows you to work in your field of passion without necessarily having to have academic qualifications or diplomas, or it allows you to be who you are. I mean, and it's the same with like religion. There's grains of truth in there, but if you have to go through the whole of religion just to get to the grains of truth and study so much untruth to get to that little bit of truth that you can find within yourself in no time at all, really, a lot of people have chosen not to. I chose not to study psychology because my insight in psychology was that all psychiatrists and psychologists were trying to do was to build a better ego, or to contain the damaged self and just repair it and just repaint it. I never saw anything that was on offer in universities in psychology as really fruitful. I see it completely differently. And so I decided to not study psychology because I didn't want to wade through 4 or 5 years of absolute crap so then I could finally start telling my truth, only to be told by all my peers who completely indoctrinated with the crap that, I was an idiot. So, and that's where a lot of people are at. A lot of people have their own insight and their own unfolding and awakening and their own insights in all sorts of, science, democracy, wheels on a bus. Have their own insights, and they can become involved in these groups without necessarily having the right cabal qualifications. And that's what it's all about working together, about finding the solutions, aligning yourselves with people and projects that you see are forward-tasting, and just co-imagineering that new reality, And I'll say a little bit about the website anyway. It's very familiar to people as it's pretty much works the same way as Facebook. You can make postings on it, and you can tick post on Facebook, so you can post on Facebook as well as on Direct Democracy. There are subcategories and work groups that people are already starting to discuss, working on forward-looking self-governance projects and broad outlines and philosophies as well. You can start your own blog on there. You can start your own forum on there. You can keep that private, or you could share it with your friends only, or you can share it with the whole group. We're going to be setting up iPhone apps and Android apps, so you can, have the phone in the drawer at the desk at work, and have the occasional look in. So it's really going to be really nicely and neatly developed, and I got to tip my hat to Rena. She's just on the ball with this, and
Is she an Australian?
yeah, she's in Melbourne,
Okay.
Australia. She
There's
did.
a lot of good stuff coming out of Australia from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. Since we're just a bunch of ex-convicts with an average vocabulary of 50 words, we're doing okay. But yeah, there's some amazing stuff going on here, and there's amazing stuff going on everywhere, and people are amazing, and people who realize their value and then decide to do something about it are unstoppable. So, even though we don't know what the road ahead is, how it's all going to happen, just taking part in the growth of that communal thought form, and actual workable designing actual workable projects, just taking part in that is what you can do today, and you don't know what's going to be tomorrow. All you know is that you've got your canoe, and you're in the middle of this wild raging torrent of a river, and all you can see in front of you is the next bend, and you just aim to get yourself around that bend while staying in the middle of the stream, and not hitting any rocks. And then what's after that bend will become apparent, and then you'll steer your course from there. But if you're just going to stand by the side of the river and endlessly debate on whether the government's going to let you have a canoe, and when you get a canoe, whether when you're going to get an orange paddle or a brown paddle, or get in the water and start sailing, and that's really the message now. I believe
Did you
that
ever do any canoeing?
Yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did that once. It was frustrating at first until I got the hang of it a little bit. Trying to make it go where we wanted it to go, and working together as a team. There were two of us.
It gets a bit scary when you get in the white water. I never got into really big white water, but the small white water was daredevil enough for me. But that's it, start rowing, and just aim for the next corner, and begin with what you believe in, and align with those who are doing the same thing. And one way or another, this thing is going to break. And I firmly believe that we have it in us now. We've reached that quorum of people who are at a certain level of their awakening on this planet. I believe that it's become energetically possible. I believe that it's become spiritually possible, and I believe that therefore that flow into our daily lives, into our mental, emotional, and physical worlds, and the organization of that world has become possible because of that. Furthermore, I just believe that it's the will of the universe, the creator, source, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, him, he, she, it.
That's actually a cosmic reset, I think, and that's something that we humans, I think, are beginning to receive, but it hasn't totally happened yet, where there's a cosmic reset that will literally shift consciousness and the awareness of people, and people will become more globally aware of our soul, if you will, or our spiritual aspect. And I think that might be something that's coming, and how it manifests, I don't know.
Well, we don't know how it's going to go, and that's the beautiful thing. Is you've got to throw this expectation away. We've always been taught the clock and the calendar and how to plan everything, and that leaves that spontaneous action, that passion is that love in action, and spontaneity and joy. It leaves that out in the cold, and we do have to get back there. We have to drop our expectations and just start working, gathering what we know. But one thing I do realize is that there's been a lot of very potent alignments according to the astrologers. There's been the Lion's Gate and the sextile configuration, and I've got to admit on those times there was very strong energy, and especially the Lion's Gate one. I didn't quite know how to interpret that energy, because it was something that I'd never never sensed, never felt quite like that before. So there was a lot of energy, but I didn't quite know how to interpret it. And it gave me a flu, actually. I didn't, it sort of ended up in my body somewhere doing something because I didn't quite know how to interpret that. And then as I went into it, I thought, no, I don't actually have a flu. It's just there's an energy at work here that I don't understand. And the moment I opened up to that thought, I started to understand a little bit about that energy, and it had something to do with my own dark side and the acceptance of the dark side, and not being afraid of the lure that the dark side had. And I shifted, and sure enough, I had this really, really heavy flu a couple of days ago, and
I
I'm
remember.
yeah, and I'm pretty much right as rain now, because I realized that I was just misinterpreting this energy that was coming in, and therefore there's a misalignment because it's an unknown energy that you don't quite know how to interpret, and therefore it had some physical consequences that weren't so pleasant. So as much as the cosmic energies do wake us up, we also have to work with them. We have to be open to them. We have to respond to them, and we have to do that within ourselves. So it's automatic, sure, in a way. It's all already done, and the cosmic energy is like this. But until we learn how to translate that into our own makeup and our own being and our own lives and the way we govern ourselves and look at money and exchanges, it won't be real for us yet. And there's still, to me, in a way, a danger that we can misinterpret this energy collectively and have a collective flu, and we have to get over that as well. I'm sure we will, but I'd rather do it without the flu and just, get in there and interpret it right and get going with the flow.
Yeah, I know you have another call that you need to take in a little while here, so I'm gonna.
Yep.
We're over a half an hour now, and 32 minutes, in fact. But I'm going to cut off a little bit at the beginning. In
Yep.
any case, I always appreciate and enjoy our conversations as well as others do. And thank you for taking the time and for agreeing to this new schedule. Of course, the fact that you were feeling under the weather a couple of days ago sort of helped make it
Yeah.
easier. And then Aristo is going to be coming up on Friday now instead of Wednesday. And this video that we just recorded, once I get the processing and all done, it'll go up online immediately.
Oh,
Go on
that's
Facebook
fantastic.
and
Yeah.
YouTube. So it'll be the same day. It will no longer have a 1 day delay with my new schedule. So thank you very much, Peter. I really
Good. Yeah,
appreciate
I'm
it.
glad the schedule's working out for you. It's always good to have a change and upset the old habits from time to time. And as always, I want to thank everybody for watching. And I do waffle on. Time goes fast when I talk. But thank you very much, Ron. Namaste. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Peter. Namaste.
Thank you, Ron.